watching Cron On, streaming now from Cron 4, the Bay Area's local news station.
Hello, I'm Elsa Gamonian. Thanks so much for watching Cron On. From real estate to gas to food, you name it, everyday items are costing more as inflation hits a 40-year high. And as the Federal Reserve makes plans to ease that burden, what can you do in the meantime to build better habits and achieve your financial desires? San Francisco author and financial advisor Jessie Susannah Karnatz, aka the Money Witch, is sharing advice in her new book, Money Magic, Practical Wisdom, and Empowering Rituals to Heal Your Finances. Jessie joins me now to discuss. Jessie, I have your book with me. It was a quick and enjoyable read. Thank you so much for the insight. And I do have to say that the combination of practices not normally mentioned together. So how did you think to meld the mystical with the practical skills of financial planning?
I think that people see the most movement on issues that they want to shift or switch habits, be different in, when they address both the emotional, the practical, and in my opinion, throw a little spiritual or mystical power behind it. So to me, it's the combination of approaching the problem from multiple angles that really gets the results that you want.
And so you talk about mindfulness and ritual. How does that come into play when it comes to getting a grasp on whether it's saving or making more money?
I think a lot of practical advice about finances, which, it's ubiquitous. There's blogs and, books, any resource you could possibly want about finances is out there and available. But it tends to just encourage us to try harder or do the same things over and over again. And I think what is missing is the fact that a lot of us have very complex and painful feelings associated with money, whether that is family of origin issues or regret or guilt that we feel about taking student loans. So looking at those issues and those feelings, really kind of healing money wounds, can unlock our ability to engage in the practical side of finances in a much more easeful way. When we sort of shame ourselves by saying why can't I seem to use that budgeting app, over and over and download it every New Year's, without really addressing why is it that we're not using the app or we're falling off of these habits we're trying to build. It's like hitting our heads against the wall over and over.
And that's something that I was really pleasantly surprised by in this book. It really draws on a lot of phrases and concepts that are more commonly talked about in therapy, like negative self-talk and low self-esteem. So how did you decide to make that link and focus in on drawing your readers' attention to their relationship with money?
I've been working as an intuitive financial coach for about a decade, and it just really is the key. I've seen so many clients make movement by basically addressing their trauma, and sometimes even trauma or emotional challenge issues that they don't understand are related to money. Like if you deal with negative self-esteem in, for example, dating relationships, it's also going to show up in your financial relationship. Those things are not, mutually exclusive. If your family has scarcity or, hoarding or any of these tendencies, it is going to show up in your finances. So it is a trauma-informed book, and that means that it is holding and addressing that for a lot of people, their emotional experiences and reaction to, the life that they've been dealt shows up everywhere, including in their finances. And people need financial information and education that can meet them where they're at.
And in the book, you write, we're never taught that feelings are a part of finance. Stop trying to force your way into financial success. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. It's like, again, downloading that app, being like, why can't I do this? People will go 10 years with the same financial habits and just feel like all they have to do is, get back up on the horse, try again. This year, I'm going to file my taxes on time. This year, I'm going to really stick with that budgeting app. This year, I'm going to set aside, X amount from my paychecks. And if you just try to shift the habit without being serious, like getting serious about the reasons why it hasn't worked in the past. I never am interested in making a plan with a client until I know like why the plan that they already had didn't work out. So I think understanding that, like understanding those emotions is really what's going to get your habits shifting. And like we're saying, we're headed deeper into recession, but your mindset about money is going to follow you no matter what the external circumstances are. So the more you can get your internal landscape around money and the things that are tied to it into a healthful place, the better off you're going to be, like weathering, adverse external circumstances as well.
And in working with people over the years, what have you noticed are some of the more common themes that keep popping up and why people kind of have that mental block when it comes to organizing themselves financially and then making that commitment to save?
I think one of the biggest, negative habits that people have or tendencies that people have, very, very common, is avoidance. And lots of us are overwhelmed. We're living really busy lives, work, family, house, having a body, all these things, they take time, they take energy. And, it's a lot of work to get them all done. And I think sometimes avoiding things that feel hard or boring or bring up a lot of negative feelings, it feels like we're kind of doing ourselves a favor. Like, oh, I was going to do my budget after work today, but I had such a hard day. So almost like, let me just do treat myself by not making myself do it and letting myself avoid it. So it almost looks like self-care, but it's really self-sabotage and self-harm, because self-love is doing the things that are hard, right? Like doing the things that we need to do to take care of the practical issues in our life, not neglecting ourselves, not perpetuating patterns of neglect that we may have inherited from the way we were raised either, right? Like really looking out for ourselves in the bottom line, the same way that we would if we were in charge of a kid, right? Like we want kids to be happy and have treats, but the major things that we're looking out for is, are they getting enough sleep? Like, are their practical needs taken care of? And we really need to show up for ourselves in the same way. But it can be easy, to let it slide because there's just so much to do. And if it feels hard, which could be for any number of reasons, it feels emotionally hard, math feels challenging, it feels just really boring and tedious. You don't understand something about how the app works, or, how a spreadsheet works. It feels intimidating. Any of those things can really just continue to perpetuate that avoidance cycle.
You are speaking the truth, Jessie, and you do admit, as you mentioned, that thinking about money and financial responsibility can be daunting and sometimes even worse, boring. So what are some tips that you want to give people to get into that headspace in a fresh and fun way, to really sit down and make that time, to then in return do something good for themselves by making that time?
I think number one, just allowing yourself to consider that hanging out with your money, hanging out with your finances could be not boring. Like just to consider it even for a moment. Making a money date with yourself, weekly, monthly at the bare minimum, and linking it with some things that feel good, that are pleasurable, lighting a candle that you like, burning some incense, having a snack that you like, having tea, having a glass of wine, rewarding yourself afterward with something that you love, like, your favorite TV show or ice cream. We're all adults, so a little bribery is okay. And I think just starting to connect pleasure or beauty or just like a lack of fear with that time that you spend with your finances can go a long way. Getting office supplies that you think are cute, getting something nice to arrange your things in, getting a nice pen or a calculator, any of those things. Finding an app that you like, right? Like trying out some different ones, feeling permission to make a little bit of space for yourself and your own personality within the financial sphere. So, making that time and space, and then just thinking about your time with your money as a relationship. So, spending time with it, getting to know it, just looking around, asking it what it needs, asking it what's going on, the same way you would treat maybe a friend or a family member that you were making a commitment to get to know better, instead of making it so task based and then kind of shame or guilt based when you don't execute the task, to your liking. Also, then not looping in that perfectionism, making space to say, you know, let me just do something towards this every week. Let me make, a gesture or a move, a small move toward this every day or every week, building that muscle. If that's an analogy that works for you, like, starting small, building it up, building more self esteem, more knowledge, more resilience until it feels more normal, more pleasurable, and more of a space and a sphere that you feel confident in.
And your book is separated by steps for people, so it really breaks it down for you. And step 3 is pretty interesting. It says identify your true financial desires and then refine them into real life goals. So people really need to get real about what it is they want. And then if you can explain the other half of putting it into action and making it a reality.
Yeah, the book is based on a 7-step system. It's a 7-step system to healing your finances, and a lot of it is about being super honest with yourself, putting a really honest lens on where you are now, both mentally and logistically about money, and then really figuring out what you want, not what your parents think you should want, not what, TV thinks you should want, but what you really want, what your values are. Um, so that you can find a place to head towards that is truly self motivated and authentic to you. When what you're trying to achieve is coming from a more authentic place, you're way more likely to show up for the process of getting there. So then we're journeying towards our destination of our financial desires. We're going to see what we find on the way, which is blocks. And when we approach those blocks, we're not going to shut down, but we're going to figure out what tools we need to find, um, in order to address them and, get the right tool for the right job. And we're going to also know that when we try, we're inevitably going to fail, but we're going to try again, right? Um, we have the right and we have permission to not be perfect and to, make mistakes, and we get to try again.
Well, thank you so much to San Francisco author and financial advisor Jessie Susannah Karnatz, aka the Money Witch, for coming on here and telling us about your new book, Money Magic: Practical Wisdom and Empowering Rituals to Heal Your Finances. Jessie, before you go, where can people find it?
Moneywitch.com and all your usual book selling online places. I know that if you're in San Francisco, Green Apple Books has copies, and you can always ask your small local bookstore to order it for you.
I actually love that spot. Thank you so much, Jessie. For now, you're watching Chron On, streaming Bay Area News 24/7.